Service animals that usually they can stay at the feet of their partner, but with soaring, since it lifts up, it's not really an option. So this is a quiet, cool, usually that's a plus side, but today it's a little chilly. Cool place for the service animal to just kind of relax while their partner's on soaring. Do you want to make sure everyone's on the same page here? This is the behind the scenes tour? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good. I have had occasionally someone come and be like, wait, what? This isn't for soaring? A little awkward. It's about an hour and 15-minute long walking tour. Do you have any fast passes or reservations that I need to worry about in the next hour and a half or so? No, not really. Okay. A little bit about me. My name's Kylie. I'm actually one of the aquaculture interns here at the land. So I deal a lot with the fish, but I do help out with the plants as well. Can answer questions on both. If I can get to know each of you a little bit better, maybe where you're from and why you decided to take this tour, I'm going to know what's going to be more interesting to go into more detail. I'd say this is our integrated pest management laboratory. Wouldn't really need one if we didn't have pests, but here at Disney, like everywhere else, we do occasionally run into pest issues. We do try and prevent those pest issues through a couple different methods. First one you'll probably notice as we enter those greenhouses is we have air curtains on all of our external doors. So if you open that door up, you're going to have a bunch of air that's going to blow down. That is going to keep all of those, well, hopefully, keep those bad pest insects out, but also keep some of those beneficial insects inside the greenhouse, because we do release beneficials. It's because it's a very sterile, very clean environment. I'm not even allowed to go in there. The workers inside there actually have to change their shoes when they come in and out of the lab. So right here you can see inside our lab. I'll admit it's a little bit crowded right now. And if you did go on the boat ride today, you'll notice that there was a black screen over it. It's because we're actually changing out our flooring in there, so things are kind of getting shuffled around a little bit. We have two projects we're working on here. One through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the other one straight for Mickey Mouse. This is where we culture our Mickey's mini gardens through a process called tissue culture. Works really well for plant cells. Can't really use it for animal cells though. Plant cells are really generalized, so a single cell has all the building blocks to make an entire plant. Animal cells are a lot more specialized. So we can take any piece of a plant, stem, leaf, root, piece of a seed, take a cutting from it, sterilize it with either ethanol or bleach, put it in one of those test tubes along with some agar solution. If you ever had a science class, you drew something on a petri dish, that gel layer on that petri dish was agar solution. Was that a yeah, you've done something like that before?
Similar.
Yeah. We're also going to add in some naturally occurring hormones the plant would usually get from its own seed and from the surrounding soil. Really, that's what's going to encourage it to start rooting. Then we're going to seal that, and all it's going to need for the first couple weeks to months is sunlight. Don't need to add any water, don't need to add any nutrients. All those are already in that tube. Once it does reach the top of that test tube, though, you are going to need to transplant it, just like a plant that had been grown from seed, and it's going to live the rest of its life just like a plant that was grown from seed. With aquaculture. So we're growing plants and water, but also fish. The tilapia, I take care of. I just feed them pellets, and it's the waste that they produce, both through their gills and out the backside, that's going to be the natural fertilizer for those plants. We don't use any nutrient solution in that tank. It's just the waste from the fish. So that's going to get sent through some filtration. It's going to convert that nitrogen down into it's going from ammonia down to nitrite, down to nitrate. Nitrates can be used by those plants. As they pull out those nitrates, they're making the water less toxic for the fish, and it makes it mutually beneficial for both the plants and for the fish. Because I don't have to do as many water changes in our greenhouses. But obviously there is something in these pots. It's actually perlite and rock wool. Both of those are only supplying support. They're not supplying any nutrients, and that's how we say they're not soil. Both of those are formed from lava rock. It's been heated up. Perlite pop's kind of like a Rice Krispie. It's really light, great at filling out a pot. Doesn't add a lot of weight, but still allows for drainage. Rock wool is lava rock that's been spun after it's heated up. It comes out looking like a cube of insulation. It's really great at starting seeds because it's going to wick up all that water and nutrients. Yep, it's in the mimosa family. It's a sensitive plant. You actually go ahead and touch one of these leaves, it's actually going to close up. So feel free to touch the leaves. Careful of the stems, those still have thorns on them.
I didn't offend it.
What's actually happening here is the plant is drawing the water out of its leaves into its stem and root structure. Reduces its surface area, so it takes a lot less damage from large animals passing through and from heavy rainfall.
You got it on the porch and I would bang the pot and the whole thing.
Yep, we say it's an earthquake detector too. I tried a cucumber. I tried it at the land because we have a taste test. You can try some of the cucumbers we've grown in the next greenhouse. See them a little bit. You'll just have to let me know how they taste. And if you didn't want to see what rock wool and perlite look like, go there. Hydroponics before you go all off and have a nice big greenhouse. Also, this is a fish tank. Piece of styrofoam on top, has some holes cut in it. Going to have rock wool cubes that you're going to start your seeds in. You want those roots to be able to reach down into that water. We do have some nutrient solution that we've added into that. And honestly, if you go to Home and Garden Center and just say, hey, I'm trying to grow something hydroponically, what kind of nutrients, what kind of fertilizer should I use? They'll point you in the right direction. And then another important step is right here. You need an air stone or an air bubbler in your water because you need oxygen to get to those roots. Otherwise, they're going to start to mold and they're going to start to rot. Lastly, you do want to keep this closed because if you have enough light for your plants to grow, you also have enough light for algae to grow. Take it from the fish guy, you don't want to spend all day cleaning algae.
I was just about to ask, what fish could pair with this?
A lot of people ask that question. You could probably put some kind of pleco in there or maybe some shrimp, but what really is the downside to that is they'll probably go, if they're going to go after algae, they'll probably go after the roots as well. So in aquaponics, we usually try to separate the fish from the plants in a separate tank and use a pump to recirculate the water. If you had a different way to physically isolate those roots, maybe some kind of netting might still work, but honestly separate tanks works
The best.
Also, the solid waste produced by the fish ends up coating the roots. The roots no longer have enough surface area to uptake those nutrients and then in our pots. And we're training them upward with string. That string is going to help keep that plant off the ground, avoids it getting a lot of pest damage. Also, it kind of separates them a little bit as it's growing up, which gives them a lot of room to grow in and they don't butt up against anything. They grow in very nice and full. You'll notice that we actually have strings on all of our plants in this greenhouse, so we call this our string greenhouse. Well, right behind us, if you want to talk about these pads, it's actually our cooling system. Don't really need it today, but this is just cardboard that's been coated in wax. On the other side of it is a trickle of water, and on hot days, all those fans on the other side of the greenhouse will be on. It's a cooler day today, so only a couple of them are. Pushing that air out over there pulls air across that water here and gives us a nice cooling sensation. This is the old, it's a giant swamp cooler. And this is the only way we cool the rest of the greenhouses. That first one is a little bit air controlled because we have a lot of herbs in there and they're very temperature sensitive. I guess hypothetically it worked. The problem is these vines are already 18 feet long. It's impractical to have them grow that high. Also, they'd easily be up to our roof if we let them keep going. So what we do is grow them until they reach that spool, take a little bit of slack, and shift that down the row. Which is what you see right here, slowly leaning that plant over, lean and lower. Nice thing about this is you're saving a lot of space because you're wrapping them on top of other plants. Also keeping it off the ground again, away from pests. And once all of these are ripe, they're all right at the same level. It's really easy to move along and harvest everything instead of going up and down a bunch of different plants. If you want to try something like this, you'll need to use an indeterminate growth variety. That just means they don't continuously grow through its whole lifespan. Something that's a determinate growth species will grow to a set height, and then it won't grow any taller, even if it's still producing fruit. Cherry tomatoes are a great example of an indeterminate. It's at an angle, because this is constantly being injected with water. Not a lot though, just enough to make that film, nutrient film, down that gutter. All that rock wool cubes are going to be soaking up, wicking up that water and nutrients. Some of this will reach the bottom, and this is a recirculating system. There's a pump that brings it back up here through a mechanical filter and a UV sterilizer. We don't want to recirculate any bacteria. And also a chiller. Lettuce is more of a colder climate vegetable, so we actually have to chill our water down to 72, 75 degrees in order to get it to grow well down here in Florida. We have 500 heads of lettuce on each of these 4 plots, a total of 2,000 heads of lettuce. One plot is harvested every week. Those are usually seeded for a week, week and a half before they come out here. So it's a total of 5.5 weeks from seed to harvest. Our other plants. That's part of our integrated pest management. That's actually containing some predatory mites. I'm going to scoot forward a little bit so Madison can scoot past us. Those are predatory mites inside there. They'll slowly release out of that packet, look all over the plant, and they're looking for the herbivorous mites, the ones that are actually munching on the plant. Predatory mites will eat the herbivorous mites, and we end up with a lot less plant damage. Next up, we have winter melon. It's an Asian variety of melon that actually grows up to 35 pounds. Traditionally, it's used in a soup. It's a really starchy taste. It tastes pretty similar to a potato. Coconut core bag again, rock wool, train it up with string to our trellis, and then just selective pruning to get it to fill in on our trellis. We do let these hang down. Their stem has enough strength to support that 35 pounds, but the vine structure doesn't quite. It'll start to sag. It'll never break, but it can get to the point where it's almost touching the ground. So you will see in some places we've actually supported these by tying rope to them. And right here helps me illustrate a point that, you seen any bees in this greenhouse so far? You're not going to see them in any of our greenhouses. We can't use bees to pollinate because we have so many guests. We're bound to have some people that are allergic to bee stings. So it's actually hand pollination that everything that doesn't self-pollinate will get pollinated. It's a lot of pollination. So what we're doing is finding a male flower. You can tell a male flower because it doesn't have a bulb behind the flower. We can pluck that one off, go find a female flower. I don't see one right now. That's just going to have a bulb behind that flower. Leave that on the plant. She needs to be on the plant to grow. Take the male flower, dab, dab, dab. We always do 1-to-1 ratios because we get the best results that way. Now we pull a petal off the female flower so no one else pollinates it. If you're the only one doing it, you don't have to worry about that. And then you just keep moving on until you've pollinated all of your female flowers. We have pretty good results, so we're okay with it, but it is fairly time consuming. In a natural production greenhouse, you'd probably release some moths, some butterflies, some bees, something like that here. This is not nearly as efficient as what we're doing over there, but some places you can't really build a nice greenhouse, have nice gutter systems and concrete. Great example is Africa. Places like Africa have really nutrient-poor soil, so even if they're growing it in the soil, it doesn't get that great of a result. Here, this is all sand. Plants don't get any nutrients from sand, but they're all growing really well. Because we have drip line down under the sand by their roots, this is what's giving them all the nutrients and water. This plant right here is called Casa banana. All of these are growing from those 2 plants right there. Casa banana is not actually related to the banana, it's more closely related to melons and cucumbers. But it's green, similar to the winter melon, kind of a starchy taste, throw it in a soup. When it's red though, or purple, depending on what you call that color, can be harvested, is sweet, can be used as a jam or a jelly, and it's very aromatic, can be used as an air freshener as well. This will stay good for almost 6 weeks after you take it off the plant, as long as you don't cut into it.
That'd be alright in the car.
Red doesn't grow a plant like this easily. Also, red is a common color for fish, so they're a lot more passive and less aggressive. In the tubes, we have a couple of commonly aquaculture species. Middle tube has the American eel. We see it in a sushi restaurant as unagi. In the bottom tube, we have freshwater shrimp. They're about 2 years old now, starting to reach sexual maturity, getting a lot more territorial and a lot more aggressive. I'm actually one of 2 people that's allowed inside this tank, and I'll say I'm definitely ready for the little ones again. They're getting a little feisty. You get 1 to 1.5 pounds of feed to gain 1 pound of flesh. Fish like bass or salmon, it's closer to 5 pounds of feed to 1 pound of flesh. Some land-based protein like cattle or pork Give you 8 to 10 pounds of meat and 1 pound of flesh. So extremely efficient fish. Welcome to our tropical greenhouse. We actually have 5 varieties of banana here. Interesting fact about bananas, they're not technically a tree. They're an herbaceous plant because their stalk is a collection of leaves and not a woody stem. They're the largest herb in the world. Right here is a pretty interesting plant called the miracle fruit. I don't know if I see any of the berries, but this does have a little red berry on it. If you eat that berry, which it looks like some people may have done, for an hour to an hour and a half after consuming it, your only taste sensation will be sweet. Nothing will taste salty, nothing will taste bitter. They're actually using this in cancer research therapy. A lot of cancer meds taste really bad. If you take one of these beforehand, it's a lot easier to stomach it. We do have some star fruit over there, and some cacao right here. Does anyone know what comes from cacao?
Cocoa.
Cocoa. And cocoa's used to make chocolate. Do you know the difference between cacao and cocoa? That's okay. Cacao is while it's on the tree. As soon as the pod is removed, it's considered cocoa. Some people say it was just a spelling error a long time ago, then now that is the distinction between cacao and cocoa.
Yeah,
German.
that would be very cool.
Huh?
That would be very cool.
Do you want to show this right here? This is not a star fruit. This is a fluted pumpkin, native to Africa. The leaves of it can be consumed similar to spinach, and it's these massive seeds inside it that are the main source of food from it. If you roast those seeds, which are about this size, they'll taste in between a baked potato and a roasted almond. This cactus right here and right here is called a dragon fruit. That red bulb is what you would eat. Texture is similar to a kiwi. It's a really mild, sweet taste, almost like a pear. This is another one that we have available as a Mickey's Mini Garden. These are overgrowth. So if you're growing your pineapple, don't let them get that color. We leave them on the plant because, like I said, show comes before production here. We know if we leave them on for a couple extra weeks, thousands of additional people will get to see them, and that outweighs the benefit of having maybe 6 people